Hi, 7th graders. We're on lesson 5-3, which starts on page 263 in your textbook. Our learning target is I can use the percent proportion to solve percent word problems. So we are going to be learning about and talking about the percent proportion. The percent proportion, which is on your vocab sheet, so you might want to write this formula down, is the percent over 100 equals part over whole, or is over of, which means that it's comparing the ratio of part to whole to the equivalent percent over 100. So what does that mean? Let's do some problems and we will find out. So if we have 17 is what percent of 110? We are going to use the percent proportion. So this formula, this proportion, for every single problem that we do on this video and throughout lesson 5-3. And actually we're going to use this a lot throughout chapter 5. So we have 17 is what percent of 110? We always put our percent, if we're given one, in the percent spot. And it's always, always, always over 100 because we know any percent is over 100. So for this question, we don't know what the percent is, so that's going to remain our unknown. So the part, which is our is 17. So let's get a marker here and we'll rewrite this. So our new proportion then is going to be x over 100 equals 17 over 110, because we are trying to figure out what percent 17 is out of 110. So we usually look for the word is. Since 17 is right with is, we know that that's our part, and we know that of 110, it tells us that that's our whole. Although it's not always, always, always going to be like that, so we do need to make sure that we figure out which is the part and which is the whole. And that's where the confusing part comes in. And now we are going to solve this as a proportion. So if you remember, you do multiply cross products. So we have 100 times 17. 100 times 17 is going to be 1700 equals, and then we do 100 times x, so 110 times x, 110 times x, and then we divide both sides by 110, so we get 15.45. X equals 0.45. So we know that 17 is, and we can round it, we'll just round it to the nearest tenth. So about 15.5% of 110. Okay, moving on. What number is 35% of 48? Right away we're given our percent, so we know that we can fill that in right away. And we don't change it because it's over 100, we leave it as the number. So it's 35 over 100 equals, we want to know what number is 35% of 48. So we're taking 35% of 48, so that's going to be our whole, and then our part is x. So then we do cross products, so we're going to do 35 times 48, and then divide it by 100. So 35 times 48 equals 1,680, and then we're going to divide it by 100, which is 16.8. So x equals 16.8. And since we were finding the part, we just leave it. We weren't finding a percent, so we just leave it as 16.8. And we always want to check just in our head to make sure that that makes sense. That, yeah, 35% of 48 probably is around 16.8. I know in my head that 50% of 48 is 24 because it's half, so we know that 35% is going to be a little bit less, and yep, that makes sense. Okay, we have 23.4 is 30% of what number? So we have our percent, so we're going to do that first. We know right away, we put that in, so 30 over 100 equals, and then we're given 23% is, so that's going to go with our is, but we just want to make sure that it lines up correctly, is 30% of what number? So we're taking 30% of a number, that's going to be our whole number, so that's going to be our x is our whole, and 23.4 is our part. Okay? So then we do our cross products. This time we do 100 times 23.4, and then we divide it by 30, which equals 78. So x equals 78. So if we were to take 30% of 78, we should get 23.4. Okay, 12 is what percent of 6? We are not given a percent, so we know that that is going to be our variable. So we have x over 100 equals, we want to know 12 is what percent of 6. So we're taking the percent of 6. So just because 6 is smaller does not mean that it is always going to be our part, because we're taking the percentage of 6. So that is actually our whole number, and our part is going to be 12. So not always is it going to be a smaller number on top and a bigger number on the bottom. So this time we take 100 times 12, because we always take our cross product first, that the two numbers are being multiplied together. So 12 times 100, and then we're going to divide it by 6. So 12 times 100 is 1200, divided by 6 is 200, so we have x equals 200, and remember we were finding a percent this time, so it's 200%. And 12 is, because 100% of 6 would be 6, so if we're doubling 100, we get 200. If we're doubling 6, we get 12. And that makes sense because since 12 is bigger than 6, it should be bigger than 100%. Carmela answered 23 questions correctly on her science test and received a grade of 92%. How many questions were on the test? So I know that we have 92%, so we're going to do 92 over 100. And then she answered 23 questions correctly, so that is going to be our part, because she didn't answer them all correctly. If she answered them all correctly, she would have got 100%. And so we want to know how many questions were on the test, which makes sense that that would be our whole number. That's the number that we're taking the 23 out of to figure out, well, 23 out of what number is 92%. So then we do cross products. 100 times 23 is 2,300, and then we divide it by 92, and we get 25. So x equals 25. So that means that there were a total number of 25 questions, and she got 23 right out of 25. And if we think about that, 23 out of 25 is close to 100%, but just a little bit less, so that makes sense that it probably is 92%. Okay, I want you to pause and try number 1, 2, and 3 using the percent proportion. So set up a percent proportion, solve, and then come back and check your answers. So if we have 17 is what percent of 68? We don't know what the percent is, so I'm going to set it up as x over 100 equals, our part then is 17 because we're trying to figure out the percentage of 68, and our whole is 68. So then we can cross multiply. 100 times 17 is 1700 divided by 68 equals 25%. What number is 12.5% of 88? We're given our percent, so we have 12.5 over 100. Remember, we always put our percent over 100. What number is 12.5% of 88? So our whole is going to be 88. We don't know what our part is. We solve 88 times 12.5 is 1100 divided by 100. X equals 11. And then 19 is 62.5% of what number? So we put in our percent, 62.5 over 100. And we're trying to figure out of what number, so our x is going to be on the bottom for our whole. 19 is our part. Cross multiply 100 times 19. And then we divide it by 62.5. And we get 30.4. 30.4. Okay, there are some other examples in your textbook if you want to go back and review or reread. And also remember to go on to NICU and take the 5-3 NICU quiz. Have a super evening.